Hello, my name is Mike. Welcome to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about Unexpected Season 5, Episode 6. We pick back up where we left off with Tiara in the confessional talking about how she doesn't feel well. She told her mom, and her mom go outside, leaving the building they do the confessionals in. Then she calls her doctors to tell them what's going on, and she hasn't felt well the entire day. She's also stressed because she got into a fight with Tiara in the confessional over Alex. And Tiara admitted to not taking her iron pills because they made her feel sick all day, and she couldn't take care of a toddler while being pregnant on top of feeling sick. She didn't think her iron low had anything to do with the baby, but when she's on the phone with the doctor, they tell her if her hemoglobin is low, that's a problem because that's the part of the body that carries oxygen through her body to the baby. And Tiara also feels like she can't breathe, and the doctor told her that it's a very high chance if you feel that way, then the baby isn't getting enough oxygen and you may need a blood transfusion, and it's too risky not to go to the ER. And like I said, Tiara feels bad because she didn't know it had anything to do with the baby and thought it had everything to do with her. Her mom also feels bad and she wished she would have been more involved, but Tiara does live in a completely different state, so it's pretty hard to be involved when you both have your own separate lives to live. But when her and her mom start driving, her mom's car starts making this weird sound. So they stop and pull over and check to see what it is, and they can't exactly find out what it is. They try to see if it's the tires, but it's not. But the tires do smell like they're burning. And her mom wants to keep going since the hospital is an hour away that the doctor wants them to go to, and she's just trying to get there as fast as they can. But Tiara is like, we need to stop, like there's something wrong with your car. And they try calling Tiara to see if they could borrow her car, but since Tiara and Tiara got into a fight, she's sending them straight to voicemail. And in the confessional, Tiara talks about how if there's a time where she needed Tiara the most, it would be right now. Even though Tiara already knew that Tiara wasn't feeling well, and she was gonna have to go to the doctor probably, so you know your sister's pregnant, and you know something can go seriously wrong, and you know she has iron problems. Why wouldn't you pick up the phone? Because it could be a phone call saying like a situation now where she needs to borrow your car so she can get to the ER, or something could be going on worse with the baby. I'm not understanding why she just didn't pick up the phone. Next, we move on to Lilly and Lawrence. Lilly and Lawrence are going to the new apartment to unpack all the stuff that they packed the previous day. And with Lilly in the confessional, she talks about how they got into a dumb argument about where to put Aaliyah's bed. And I talked about this last video, but Lawrence did not want the bed in their room because Aaliyah already sleeps in her own room, and there's no reason to create a bad habit. And then with 2 beds and a crib, that's a lot, and there's like no room to walk in their room. But in Lily's defense, she wanted Aaliyah's bed in their room because she could get more sleep that way. But I don't think they ever came to an agreement, and we will see later on in the scene that Lily won the argument and there was 2 beds and a crib in their room. So Lawrence and Lee are at their new apartment. They're getting all the boxes in the new apartment, and this is really off track, but these apartments are really nice. I would never expect anything like this out of New York. I don't know what I think New York looks like, but I just imagine New York like how we've seen it in TV shows, I guess. I don't really like imagine it as like a nice place to live. So that was my fault, and I was closed-minded about how New York looks. Anyways, in the confessional, Lily talks about how she had way more stuff than she thought she did, and how all of it may not fit into her 2-bedroom apartment, and she needs a mansion to fit all her stuff, which I feel like this is something she kind of should have knew beforehand, because I feel like when she was at her mom's house, her mom just kind of let her take over the space so she could put anything where she wanted. And also on top of that, they bought a bunch of other stuff, so I feel like this is something she kind of should have knew beforehand. And there's still another little boxes that Lawrence has to go back and get. Lily's mom came over with Aaliyah to help unpack, and her mom takes Aaliyah into the bathroom so she can use it, and Lily doesn't have any toilet paper. And in the confessional, Lily says that she won't miss her mom judging her, and her mom says that she won't miss the mess around in their house, but they'll definitely miss each other. Back to the scene, Lily goes into her and Lawrence's room, and she realized that 2 beds in a crib is too much, and she realizes that Lawrence was right, but she won't admit that to him because I guess she likes being right all the time, so she's just gonna act like she loves. Next we move on to Jen and Aiden. They are in Pittsburgh for Father's Day, and Jen is trying her hardest to keep her family together, so her and Aiden don't turn out like her parents. And while they're driving on the way to the zoo, Aiden asks, "What did you get me for Father's Day?" And she says it's a surprise. Then she says, "What did she get me for Mother's Day?" And she says, "Flowers after I cried." Then we go on to the confessional, and Jenna says that her feelings were hurt that he didn't get her anything for Mother's Day. He says he got her something, but he only got her flowers after she cried that he didn't get her anything. And he says, "I won't get anything next year." And she says it'll be no different than last year, so what's the difference? Which I can understand why Jenna would be upset, because like if they haven't had like a conversation like, oh, let's not get each other gifts and stuff like that, because I know there are people who do have that type of relationship where, you know, they don't get each other gifts. I don't think that's the type of relationship Jen and Aiden have, and I think she was expecting something, so when she didn't get anything, it made her feel worse, especially because she feels like their relationship is kind of falling apart. Jenna even talks about how Aiden used to get her gifts all the time, and then it just stopped. And Aiden says their relationship is the same and nothing has changed, but Jenna says it has, and it obviously has just by telling the way they interact with each other. And going back to the scene, when they get to the zoo, Jenna senses that Aiden's already in a bad mood, and she's hoping seeing Luca happy and him looking at animals will brighten up his mood. In the confessional, she goes on to talk about how Aiden is a very good father, but it's not enough because Jenna feels like they don't spend enough time together. And Aiden disagrees with that. He feels like he spends plenty of time with his family and has good time management. He even says how people will come up to her and say how shocked how much he helps her with the baby. And Jenna doesn't disagree with that. She just wish Aiden would spend more time with her how he used to. And even though he says, like I said, nothing has changed and the relationship is still the same, it's not the same for Jenna. They don't even sleep in the same bed. I'm not sure whether they were referring to sex or like literally sleeping in the same bed with each other. Whichever one it is, they're not doing it. And Aiden says it's because Luca sleeps in the bed with them. Aiden says start training him to sleep in his own crib and then things will change. But Jenna doesn't want to do that because she says that she loves him, and I guess she just wants to be near him. So I'm not sure if it was a mutual agreement for the baby to sleep in their bed or if it just happened and Aiden just went along with it. But the whole point of the confessional was Jenna saying how she didn't feel like she was getting the attention that she wanted from Aiden. Back to the scene, when they're at the zoo, Aiden just seems uninterested in being in the zoo and he doesn't care. And Jenna in the confessional says that she's trying so hard to make her family worse. That's what she wants, and she doesn't want Luca to grow up in a broken home like she did, and she wants to do everything possible to make sure Luca has everything that she ever needed and wanted in life. And back to the scene, when they're at the zoo, Jenna wants to go look at the elephants. And so they go look at the elephants, but Aiden starts walking off as soon as they get to that point of like looking at the elephants, and Jenna's not understanding why he's just so uninterested and why he just doesn't care. Like, this is supposed to be a good day, this is supposed to be for you, this is just supposed to be all positive vibe. So she's not understanding why is it going so wrong. And in the confessional, Aiden says that he's not in a bad mood, that's just his personality. And I guess like nonchalant, like doesn't care, but that's probably the issue. You don't care, and that's a problem for Jenna because she felt like you once cared and now you don't. I think what the situation is, Aiden has just become a different person, and the person who has become isn't suiting Jenna's needs. So I do think it is time just to end the relationship before it gets worrisome. Next, we move on to Emerson and Mason. It is Emerson's induction day, and Mason's dad drops off Mason at Emerson's house. In the confessional, they talk about how Mason's dad is really scared since he's never been a parent, and it's just a really stressful situation. And Mason is stressed out, and he's worried, but he's not showing any signs. And he says he's learned to manage stress better since his mom has been in and out of jail and worrying about her. He has just learned how to manage stress. And sometimes people worry about him since he doesn't handle stress the way they would. And then his dad drops Mason off, and we see Emerson's mom and Emerson's grandmother there. In the confessional, Emerson's mom talks about how she doesn't want Emerson to get induced. She feels like it was not a wise decision, even though it was not her decision to make. And I feel like if I had been pregnant for 9 months, I wouldn't want to get induced too. I no longer want to do this. I never want to do this from the jump start, and I just want to get this over with and have my child. So I could understand why Emerson chose to get induced. And Emerson and her mom would go to the hospital together, but her mom has her own baby 3 months ago, so she can't go with Emerson, and Emerson's grandmother is going to go with her, and so is Mason, because they can have 2 support people there. Erica is scared for Emerson since she's never done this before, and she knows how intense labor can be. In the confessional, Emerson talks about how she's glad her grandmother is going with her because her grandmother deals with stress better, and she lets Emerson make her own decision. And she also states that if her mom was there, she made the choice to get induced, her mom would have made a completely different decision. So as we can see, there has always been a power struggle between Emerson and her mom, and I think we will continue to see that this season once the baby gets here. And also in the confessional, Emerson's mom talks about how she worries Mason won't know how to support Emerson, even though Emerson's grandmother is also there. But Erica says that her mom is just too sweet and won't be able to be on Mason's neck. And I don't know why she would want to be on Mason's neck, because that's not going to help the situation. And I think she's just trying to control the situation, even though it is not a situation for her to control. Next, we move back around to Lilly and Lawrence. They are settled into their new apartment, and Lawrence's mom comes over, and before she enters the house, she is like ringing the doorbell like repeatedly, and it's so annoying. And Lilly is just sitting there playing with the baby, and Lawrence is trying to clean up because he is such a clean freak. He get all the toys and stuff off the floor. But when Lawrence finally opens the door, she brings housewarming gifts. I guess you could call them, I'm not exactly sure, but she brings LJ like this little toy dog that babies have. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but you know, it's like one of those Fisher Price little toy dogs. And she brings Aaliyah a strawberry shortcake little plushie, and she brings Lilly a spatula set. But once she sits down and she's talking to Lawrence, she talks about how she's so proud of Lawrence for moving out on his own and getting his own. But while they're talking, Aaliyah comes in the living room with an apple and starts eating it. But Lawrence doesn't want anybody eating in the living room, and he only wants them eating in the kitchen. And in the confessional with his mom, he goes on to say that he's a clean freak and he doesn't want anyone in the living room, but he can. And he says he can since he pays $2,400 in rent. He can do whatever he wants. And this brought up a very specific memory from my childhood. When I was younger, my stepdad kind of had like same rules. Like we couldn't eat in the living room or even step a foot in the living room with food in. And it was also kind of like the same way in the kitchen though. Like, I know that's weird to say, but I had to sit at a specific table to, like, if I wanted to eat, I couldn't sit like at a regular dining table, which I thought that was weird since I was like 10 and it's like I'm sitting at this table I can barely even fit at. I was also old enough to sit at like a regular dining table. And there's even like a more specific memory when I ate like noodles in the living room one time, and I got in trouble for it because there was like oil on the table or something. Like, it was kind of stupid. But anyways, this is not about me and things from my childhood. But back to the scene, they're telling Kalia like, you can't eat in the living room, you have to get out of the living room. And Lily's telling her like, come sit in the kitchen, eat your apple in the kitchen. And Aaliyah tells her mom that she's not gonna spill it. She never leaves from the living room, and she just continues to sit there and eat her apple peacefully. And in the confessional, Lawrence's mom talks about how the kids are gonna run all over him, and Lawrence is not exactly sure how to set his rules and boundaries and make sure they understand them without being overly aggressive or rude. And I think he's even having a harder time with Aaliyah since that's not his child, and like, you know, when someone's not your child, you're really not sure how to approach things with them. Next, we move back around to Tiara, Tyra, and Melissa and Tiara call Melissa's sisters Candace to see if they know where Tyra is, and Tyra is ironically at Candace's house. So they go to Candace's house to see if they can borrow Tyra's car, of course, so they can go to the hospital. So when they get there, Ella starts having a meltdown for no reason. She starts freaking out, so Tiara's just like, we'll take her with us, like, let's just get to the hospital. And before this, Tyra agreed to let them borrow her car so she can get to the hospital. But as Melissa is putting Ella in the car, Layla says you're not taking Ella, so Tiara has to go get Layla. Tiara is telling Tyra, like, come get your kids so we can go to the hospital and I can get checked out. As Tiara is picking Layla up so she can take her back to where she was, Layla starts hitting Tiara, and Tiara is stern with her and tells her it's not okay to hit me and you're going inside. And Tiara is telling Tyra again to come get your kid, but then Tyra gets upset because she felt like Tiara was yelling at Layla, and in the confessional she says that no one should ever yell at my child, and that's all I have to say about the situation. She also says that the fight didn't start about the car. The fight started with her yelling at Layla. Even though Tiara wasn't yelling at Layla, she was just being stern with her, saying it's not okay to hit me, like, because it's not okay to hit people. And if you would have just came and got your child the first time she asked you to, you would have never went through this whole situation. Even though I don't believe that's where this situation started, with Tyra being mad, I think it started with her being upset with Tiara had said about Alex in the confessional, and then she got upset about the car because she didn't want them to really use her car because I guess she had other things to go and do. And then I guess with her yelling at Layla, so-called, it was just the icing on the cake. In the confessional, Tyra and Tiara's mom end up saying she was very disappointed in Tyra because she knows right from wrong, and she knew that it was something important and it was an emergency. But in the end, they end up taking Candace's car and they got to the hospital, and hopefully everything went good and nothing was wrong. Next, we move on to Emerson and Mason. Emerson and Mason and Emerson's grandmother at the hospital because she's getting ready to get induced, and they FaceTime with her mom while she's there. And this is besides the point, but Erica has some really pretty kids. I didn't expect them to be ugly or anything, I just thought they were really pretty. But anyways, that's not the point. Emerson forgot the birth plan at home, so her mom had to take a picture of it and send it to her, and her mom is scared since she's never been through this, and Erica knows everything that comes with labor and delivery because she's had 6 kids. And Emerson wished she had her mom there to help her breastfeed, but other than that, she's glad that her grandmother and Mason are there. And she is only half a centimeter dilated. She has a very long way to go, so the doctor's surfing her cervix with this stuff called like Silvix, I think it's called. And it's supposed to help her dilate more so she can have the baby sooner. But in the confessional, Erica doesn't understand why Emerson chose to get induced, because when you're induced, contractions are more painful. But Emerson just wants the baby out, and I'm kind of like done having this conversation with them because at the end of the day, it's Emerson's decision, and she chose to get this done and over with. And also, this is her first time, so she's not gonna know everything, and contractions are gonna hurt regardless. So I would understand why she would just want to get it over with. But going back to the scene, Emerson is in a lot of pain, and she doesn't want to ask for the epidural too early because she's afraid it may wear off before it's time for her to push and give birth. But she also doesn't want to be touched by anybody, and she just wants to be left alone because she's just in so much pain. And she really underestimated how bad contractions were gonna hurt, so she thinks she's just gonna go ahead and get the epidural. Lastly, we move on to Jin and Aiden. Jenna and Aiden in the car and they're leaving the zoo. Both Jin and Aiden are irritated. Aiden doesn't know where to go because they're in Pittsburgh and he's not from this area. So he asks Jenna to look up like where to go and like how to get back home. And Jenna is irritated because she feels like he can look it up on his own, and he should have looked it up in the parking lot. It's not that big of a deal. They're just irritated and both being ridiculous. In the confessional, says that Aiden just is not interested and he doesn't care. And Aiden feels the complete opposite, and he feels like he cares and he spends a lot of time with his family. And people tell her all the time how involved he is and how like that's such a good thing. But the producer says in the background, being there as a father is not the same thing as showing love and affection. And that's what Jenna's looking for. She's not looking for you to be there as a father. She's also looking for that, but she's also looking for you to spend time with her, to interact with her, to talk to her, because she feels like Aiden doesn't talk to her. Going back to the scene in the car, Jenna says that she wish Aiden would talk to her and just say how he feels, and Aiden just gets more irritated. And they kind of have this little back and forth. Then Aiden goes on to say, "You're not going to make me look like the bad person." Then he takes down the camera that's mounted at the front of their car, but we can still hear and see what's going on because there is a camera in the back seat and it has Luca on it. We do not physically see Jen and Aiden, but we can still hear the conversation that's going on. Looks like in the next episode they're gonna argue and have a back and forth. And that's the end of this episode. It was a good episode in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every episode so far. I don't think I've ever not enjoyed Unexpected. So hopefully they will continue up the good work. And thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you want. And bye.